In 1985, at Wembley Stadium, in front of over 70,000 people, Queen walks on the stage, and in just 20 minutes, they made one of the greatest performances in music history. And what happened? They stole the show. And this is what Bob Geldof, Elton John, and other musicians like Bono said. And although musicians like Dire Straits and U2 played before them, but Queen was the one that turned the whole event 180 degrees. Rolling Stone magazine even described it as a seismic event. And because of this seismic or this performance, the show reached almost 2 billion people around the world. Millions of dollars in donations came in, and in the end, millions of people in Africa were fed. But the question here is how? How did this happen? It's a simple answer. It wasn't the music, it wasn't the songs, and it wasn't even the voice of Freddie. It was the performance. These four guys, especially Freddie, made a legendary performance. Performance had a huge impact on people to the point that made them donate to the famine and made us, until today, when we talk about Live Aid, remember the image of Queen. It jumps into our mind like that. But if we talk about the Global Citizen Festival, if I say to you the Global Citizen Festival, what is the image that will jump into your mind? Most of you will not remember anything, and only a few will remember it was a big charity concert in Central Park back in 2018. But will anyone remember anything else? The number of the people there, the songs, the impact, the musicians, the performance of the musicians? The answer is no. So how did we move from this to this? And I'm not talking about music. We still have good music. And I'm not talking about musicians. We still have good musicians. But I am talking about the performance, the stage, the energy, the movement. I mean, why don't we have great performers anymore? Until the 50s, the stage was just a thing that musicians stood on to do their show. Musicians like Glenn Miller, Dean Martin,
so don't turn down my invitation.
Bing Crosby,
Something happened to my heart.
and Frank Sinatra.
So she'd love.
Then three people came: Chick Berry, Little Richard, and Elvis Presley.
You ain't nothing but.
These three people, especially Elvis, didn't just change the music, the lyrics, and even the culture, but they came with something new. They came with the performance. And this performance is what changed the image of a star after that. Before, the accepted thing was this star standing in a suit and tie on the stage, singing to the audience. But now, the accepted thing became this star standing on the stage, blowing the audience away with his performance and not just his singing. And that's why the stage in the 60s and the 70s, especially the 70s, became an important thing and a main part of the show. And it wasn't important to be beautiful or attractive. I mean, its importance became connected to the performance itself. And the idea was like, this is the stage, so show us how will you get the crowd. So the next generation of musicians focused on their performance on the stage just as much as they focused on their music, because they knew that their music will not live forever in the memory of the audience unless it came with a great performance on the stage. And this is what brought us great musicians like James Brown, Mick Jagger, Roger Daltrey, Elton John, David Bowie, Robert Plant, and Freddie Mercury, who gave in the 80s one of the greatest performances on the stage. The stage that turned since this moment by the hands of groups like Kiss, Guns N' Roses, Van Halen, Bon Jovi, AC/DC, and Motley Crue into a crazy show. Strange characters, fire, screaming, smoke, explosions, high energy, and flying on the stage. They were really crazy shows. And this reached to its peak in the 90s with metal groups and Michael Jackson, who turned the show into a full cinematic experience. Legendary intros, changing events, stories, characters, dance groups, amazing body dances, space clothes, and great endings. And this is what made his show in Munich 1997 became one of the greatest shows in music history, making at the end of the tour more than $165 million. And because of this huge money, production companies, especially in the beginning of the 2000s, started to spend big amounts of money on the look of the stage more than the performance. And so we got a huge shows but with a dull performance and almost zero impact until we reached to this moment where the stage became just a beautiful decor that completes the visual look of the show. That's why the stage now is no longer the hero, and the performance is not what makes you a star or not. But the hero now became the music video. And this leads us to the second reason. In the end of the 60s, and with the increase of protests against the Vietnam War, musicians like Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix, CCR, The Doors, and Jefferson Airplane started to write songs made especially to express the people and the street. I mean, they became the voice of the generation.
There must be some way out of here.
So I finally rode away. Some folks are born made to wave the flag.
Television, children fell.
So when those songs started to play in concerts like the big Woodstock Festival, and the audience became a participant with their voice and protest in the show and not just a listener, the idea started that the song must be good for listening and for the concert together, and that the audience must stay participating in it on the stage, especially when shows started to happen in stadiums and thousands of people attended them. And to make this happen perfectly, the front man had to develop a type of performance and not just dancing and jumping that makes the crowd move and sing with him. That's why in the 70s, most songs had the audience participating in them, and screaming and shouting were replaced by singing and movement. Even some songs were made specially for this, and Queen is one of the most people who applied this. We will rock you. We are the champions.
We are the champions.
And another one by Stardust.
I didn't hear you. Do it.
And in the 80s, this became the main thing. So we will find many songs like Pour Some Sugar on Me, I Love Rock and Roll, Jump, Don't Stop Believing, Living on a Prayer, and Paradise City. And here, the performance was no longer limited to the front man only, but to the band, the audience, and everyone in the place. Everyone was singing and moving, but with the entry of music into the internet era and the appearance of streaming sites like Spotify, the idea of music made for the stage was no longer important. And the idea of music made for the audience, which expresses the street and the people, was no longer important. In fact, the audience, the street, and the stage itself was no longer important, because most of the songs made to be listened to online, and that's all. So why will the musician trouble himself to do a performance on the stage when his songs are made for online, not for the concert? And this is not limited only to the performance. He also no longer needs to have a voice on the stage or have a character. And this leads us to the third reason. If you look to the past, you will find that there were big literary and philosophical movements like the Beat Generation movement. You will find that there were big culture movements like the counterculture. You will find that there were big wars like the Vietnam War. You will find that there were big struggle movements like the civil rights movement. I mean, the world had big something happening right there. And this is what had a huge impact on musicians back then. Or in other words, it made their characters. Let's take an example. Let's take Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison was very affected by these events and by the Beat Generation movement, especially after he read On the Road by Jack Kerouac. And this didn't only affect his philosophy in life, but it also made his musical philosophy. So his writing style in many songs, like The End,
This is the end.
and When the Music's Over,
When the music's over.
was built on the idea of a stream of consciousness, the same style that the novel was written with. And this is not the only impact. He was also affected by the culture of the road and the freedom that the novel and the movement called for in general. And we will notice this in songs like Riders on the Storm.
Riders on the storm.
Even his loud performance on the stage was an impact from the events of the crazy novel. And if we really study the character of Jim Morrison, we will find that we are not in front of a musician only, but also in front of a poet, a writer, and a philosopher. And this didn't happen only with Jim. It happened with most musicians back then. I mean, most of the musicians were philosophers. They used to deal with music through philosophy. And this was also showing in their performance on the stage and not just in their music. Look, for example, at this picture. What does he say? We are the champions. Oh, come on. Don't make it big. It's just Freddie. Okay, let us do a small edit. We will leave Queen, we will leave the same song, but we will delete Freddie and replace him with Adam Lambert. So yes, it's Freddie, but it's also the performance, the vision, the philosophy, the passion. It is the character. But now we are in an era where most musicians look like each other. I mean, it's the era of no character, or in other words, the era of the image, where musicians care about their image more than the character. They care about how they will appear in social media and not how they will appear on the stage. They care about how the song will be good for the algorithm, how the melody will be catchy, and not what the words of the song express. Look, for example, at one of the most famous songs of Justin Bieber. Yeah, you got that yummy, yummy, that yummy, yummy, that yummy, yummy. Look at his performance, at his character, at even his long career. You will find that he doesn't have any vision, any philosophy, any real music project. And this is almost happening with the most musicians today. And when the musician doesn't have a philosophy, doesn't have a character, doesn't read, doesn't sing, and doesn't care about what is happening in the world, what will he do? What will he say? And what exactly will he express on the stage? But the other reason for that also is cancel culture, because even the musicians who have a character, a vision, a philosophy, and many times they don't share their opinion because they are afraid of cancel culture, afraid of losing the audience, afraid of not succeeding anymore. And this leads us to the final reason. Success in the golden eras of music was connected to the concert and not just the songs. And this is what was pushing the musician to do the impossible on the stage to succeed with the public. Even many songs did not succeed on the radio, for example, but succeed when they were played on the stage. Songs like I Want You to Want Me, Show Me the Way, Rock and Roll All Night, and even No Woman No Cry.
No woman,
But now, success became connected to the trend, to the look, to the clothes, to the relationship between the musician and his girlfriend, and look, oh, they are so cute. And you will not find, for example, an artist whose album sales dropped because of his performance of the songs on the stage, or his song failed because it was played badly in a concert, or even his audience left his concert because of his boring character on the stage. And the reason? Because success for the audience is no longer connected to the good performance on the stage. Yes, there are musicians who succeed today because of their performance on the stage, but the point is that this is not the normal thing. Even the audience itself no longer goes to the concert for the music, but for filming, documenting, and taking selfies to get likes on their profiles. And this went further than that too, as the audience became evaluating the artist and his success not by his music or his performance or anything else, but by how are his views and how is his look. And this was impossible back then, because the success of the musician and his true evaluating was through his songs and his performance on the stage, and not his shape or his look. And the proof, Freddie Mercury went out on the stage, shook the whole world, and he was just wearing a tank top. And in the end, I want to say that the purpose of this video is not saying that the old days was only the good days, like the old people. No. The world is still good, and we still have good musicians and good music too. But we are just trying to understand and analyze, why don't we have great performers anymore?